Hello and welcome to another live. Today we're going to be going over the Lamy All-Star with the Kanji nib, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now, that's what we're going to be doing for the vast majority of the live today. But I do want to talk about, well, we'll be swatching these two inks and then inking the pen up and trying it out because I've never tried this nib before. We're going to take a look at it up close under a loupe. Of course, write and do a writing sample with it. But I also want to do this kind of, it's not really an unboxing, but I picked up this Lamy from Wendy Sue. And so I wanted to share everything that Wendy sent me in the box in addition to this Lamy. So Wendy Sue was rehoming a number of Lamy pens, Safaris and All-Stars. And back in the day, I did have a Safari and I didn't super care for it, so I did rehome that. It was the Lamy Mongo with a 1.1 stub. But I said to myself, should I ever get another Lamy, I will get a metal one. What I would really love is the LX Maron, however it's pronounced, the brown one. But maybe I can trade this one for one, or maybe at one point I can get that. I really like it, but this is really pretty. This is showing up, it's a little more pink in person. This is the Cosmic. So yeah, we'll dive into this and swatching these inks that Wendy was so kind as sent me, but let me go over everything in here. So Wendy sent me this, a decorative figure, and I promptly took it out of the packaging and stuck it on a monitor as Wendy suggested that I do. And Wendy, if you're watching this, I got this one. And it's happily homed on a monitor now. So thanks, that was kind of fun. That was like the first thing I did. Other than look at the pen. Okay, so here's Wendy's handle. Fountain Pen News, Wendy Sue, Grover, all of the pen and ink news fit to print, or cursive, or italic. And here are some QR codes so you can check out Wendy Sue, the Instagram, YouTube. Not sure what this one takes you to, but that's the handles. So thank you for that, Wendy. I also got some of Wendy Sue's. I'm quite certain these are hand-painted original stickers. I wish I knew what ink they were, because that would make it even more fun. I'm assuming they're fountain pen inks, but they're fun little splotches. So these will be fun to put in my traveler's notebook. Thank you so much. I think this one's my favorite. It might be the eyebrows, I'm not sure. And then this little sticker. Then we've got some paper cards. So these will be fun. The paper feels really nice. Thank you. That's always, oh, and there's like little things on the background. Little notes by E. Francis Paper. Then there's this little bumblebee. And Wendy Sue, I would like to know if you or a member of your family made this. I'm supposed to hide it in my house, and that will be happening. But I can't promise that my cat won't get a hold of it and start playing with it. Wendy Sue also sent me these to organize washi with. So that'll be really fun and interesting, and I probably will come up with other ideas for how to incorporate these into my life as well. Oh, another sticker. Fountain Pen News. That's really fun. So pretty. Thank you. And then, where do you think you're going? A notebook. I don't know what kind of paper this is. It feels very nice. All big things have small beginnings. That's really cool. I like that. Thank you so much. And I like that it's stitched. I really appreciate this. I appreciate it all very, very much. So we'll put these aside and dive in to the fountain pen things. I'm going to be writing on some Midori cream paper, and I'm going to be swatching in this Galen passport notebook size that I have, and this is Tomo River, Sanzen Tomo River paper, so we'll do that. And then I will pick one of these inks that Wendy Sue sent over to ink this up with. And I'm going to guess that we're going to go with this one out of the two options, but you never know. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so let's first off take a look at this. Just really quickly go over it. The All-Star Over the Safari comes in aluminium, but it's not as premium or high-end as the LX. So I like that it's metal. It has a little X here, kind of like on the back it says Germany. On the side it says Lamy. It has an ink window. It has a paper clip style clip. It's click and pull to open. It looks like there's plastic casing on the inside. Then this unscrews, and there's plastic casing on the inside of that too. The ink window is hollow, so it's just cut out. Here we have a converter. I believe these are sold separately. They usually come with a cartridge. You'll see that it has two little knobbins there, and that fits onto here. Let's see, I wasn't planning on this, but I like taking things apart and showing people things, so let's do this. Let's take this out. Now this is mostly clear. You have a grip section that is rather somewhat triangular, and the purpose of this, you'll probably see that shape here, but the purpose of that is it's supposed to encourage proper writing, what would you say, posture, or like that you hold it in the proper manner. So that'll be interesting. Also, the nibs are easily interchangeable. So the nib slides out. It is on rails on the feed. So these come in extra fine, fine, medium, broad, 1.1 millimeter, 1.3 millimeter, 1.5 millimeter, and the Kanji nib, or the cursive nib, which came out a little bit over 2 years ago and has recently been discontinued. So this was the main reason that I wanted to pick this pen up. It's not so much because I'm in love with the Lamy pens, it's more because I really wanted to try this nib. And this Kanji or cursive style nib is in-house ground. I'm going to give you a close-up of the loop soon, but it is kind of like, though I've not tried it, my understanding is it's a softer or more curved architect. Also similar to what's another pen? The Naginata grind. So it's going to give line variation, and it's supposed to specifically be for writing the Chinese or Japanese characters and getting that variation, the fine and the broad, depending on your strokes and elevation. But we'll be exploring it in writing in capital and cursive in English. So I'll be curious to see that. So like I said, you can slide this off, and then the feed comes out. I usually use a rubber grip and give it a good pull. So this all comes out as a whole unit for cleaning. And it goes in easily, it snaps in, and this goes back on the rails like so. So let's take a look at it up close. I'm going to do my best with my loop here to see if I can give you a good look. So there you can see the shape of how that grind is done. Tried to hold it as steady as I could. So you can see how it has that kind of softened architect look to it. I'm going to reassemble, actually we'll just leave this to the side for a minute. And let's go ahead and swatch these inks so I can pick an ink to ink it up with. And I'll be using a glass spoon to do this with. Alright, let's start with the Sailor Shikiori Yamadori. Presumably from the sticker, it is a blue ink. I think these are such beautiful bottles. Lovely weighted glass, and I like 20 ml bottles because you get a nice, what would you say, opportunity to try the ink without having to commit to a large volume of it. So I really like that. We'll be using a glass spoon, and we'll be using this shuttle aluminum dip nib. These are really cool. I have a video on that if that is of interest. Okay, so we'll take the back end of the spoon here and do some swatching. This is a lot actually grayer and darker than I was anticipating, but I actually really like the color. I'm not a big fan of blues in general, but I really like this. Thank you, Wendy Sue, for sharing this. And then we'll write it out here. So Sailor, and sorry, I'm trying to write without getting my hand dirty. I probably should have written this first. Shikiori. This was Yamadori. I like that color a lot. There is a little bit teal in there as well, now that it's drying especially. I like that. And it feels like a very well-performing ink also. And we'll also be swatching the other one. Sailor Shikiori Okuyama. I didn't super plan this out well, but let me just put a piece of paper down and turn the page. And get a little bit on me, just for fun. Alright, that'll work. Let's swatch this one out. This looks very pretty. Okay, we'll use the glass spoon again. Use the back end. I like this color because it reminds me of like cranberry or some kind of berry like pomegranate or something. At least when it's highly saturated, it looks reddish, but you can definitely tell there's a pink-like undertone to it. Okuyama. I definitely will be going with this one to ink the pen up with, because the Lamy All-Star Cosmic, which I just got, does, even though it looks pretty kind of silvery on camera, it definitely has a pink undertone. So I think this will work well. Let's go ahead and ink it up. And I am a big fan of the blunt tip syringe. So this is the converter that goes with the Lamy. So I'll be using my blunt tip syringe and the ink directly. And just doing a partial fill on this. I seldom do full fills on pens. I like to switch my inks out frequently. So that's just what works for me. I'll get that primed. Let's just put this ink away before something happens. Okay, let's take a look at those inks now that they're probably dry, more or less. So here's the, this isn't dry yet, but a good part of it is. This is the Okuyama. I really like that. That's actually really pretty. It reminds me of the Pelican Idolshine Ruby, Star Ruby. Only a more pleasing color for me. A little bit more red with just that nice pink undertone and that slight green shading. And then this is really awesome. I actually really like this. I haven't used as many Sailor inks as I like. This is the Sailor Shikiori Yamadori. And that's a beautiful blue. Leaning on the teal with a sheen to it as well, just on the very highly saturated areas. So we're gonna get this inked up. Now, usually after I've syringe filled a pen, I will do one of two things. I'll either flood the feed operating the piston, or I will hold the pen in a napkin, fold it over itself, and then give it a shake. And sometimes I need to do both those things, but see, that primed it for me. And I prefer this method because I don't really like dipping my pens into ink, nor do I care for, sometimes you get ink up here and it's just more cleaning. So this is now ready for us to start writing. So as I mentioned prior, I have some Midori MD cream paper, and there is the nib again. And this, so this nib is supposed to be like a softened architect. It's a cursive nib. So let's see. Lamy. This is All Star. And this is the Cosmic. With the Kanji or Cursive nib. Alright, so I've been writing in all caps so far. Let's see about the line variation. Oh, and let's write the ink down. Sailor, Shiki Ori, Yama. Alright, so let's take a look at this line variation situation. This is the downstroke and the cross-stroke. Okay, so yes, similar to an architect, you might be able to see that the horizontal line has slightly, very slightly, a wider stroke than the downstroke, the vertical. Let me write with a softer pressure. You can see maybe the variation there better. It's really not as much as I expected. I also should have considered how Lamy nibs are often, Lamy is a German company, and the nib is very smooth, which I really don't care for personally. I like a lot more feedback. Okay, so let's see here. Let's try some different writing elevations. Upright and lower. So the most line variation, or let me rephrase this. I found that the broadest point is the horizontal stroke with kind of a medium elevation. The high elevation definitely gives a finer stroke, and then the really low elevation lands somewhere in the middle. Personally, I'm not finding this to give as much line variation anywhere near an architect, really. At least the architects that I've had, it's pretty pronounced. So let me see. Let me flip the paper over. Yeah, so that's the line variation. This is up and down. And then, let me just zoom in a little bit here. This is the up and down stroke, and this is the horizontal across stroke. So there's definitely a difference, but personally, it's not a crazy amount of difference. So when would I recommend getting this nib? If you do write Chinese or Japanese characters, I think this nib might have a special intrigue for you in writing that, because it would be a lot more accommodating than a Western style nib. If you're writing in English, to me, this just feels like a medium or a broad, depending on what make it is. I think I would enjoy the writing a lot more if the nib had more feedback, because it would be a lot more engaging of a writing experience. But I do like that flair that you get with this nib. You do kind of get that brush-like effect more than you would on a normal fountain pen, for sure. For me personally, I do find it overly smooth. The wetness is good. It's like a medium with just slightly on the wet side. And what else can I tell you about this writing experience? I think that if you do art, this is a nib that you might find gives some unique stroke effects. And you can kind of see how I did that. See how it tapers off. So this nib does have some abilities that a normal nib wouldn't. I just feel like I would have liked a lot more variation, and I would have liked more feedback. So I will say though, when this nib would be extremely helpful is if you want an introduction to a little bit of a character in the writing experience, because this certainly does write differently than a regular bulbous nib would, but it's going to be a lot softer and more user-friendly than an architect, because I've heard a lot of people mention that the architect is not as user-friendly. It is more, you have to pay attention more to your rotation, and it's a lot more crisp. And this is a lot more rounded than an architect would be. So I think that that offers a really good happy ground. This nib has been out for a little over 2 years, and it has now been discontinued. So if it's something that you think you might be interested in, definitely check out looking for it or asking for it secondhand. I don't know that any retailers would still have it available, but for the price that it was being sold for on the retail end, I believe it was $22. You can't get a custom grind like this at that price point. So I think that is where the merit comes in. Not to mention that this will fit those Lamy pens, the Safari, the All-Star, the LX, and There's a number of more high-end pens from Lamy that do take these nibs that slide out and slide in, which is really cool. So I think that is where the strength or benefit of this style of nib comes in, and who might be interested. If you're like myself, that you really like a more pronounced and drastic line variation, I would say that this might not be enough for that kind of interest, because the line variation is there, but it's not as pronounced and significant as I would like. So that's what I think about it. Having said that, it is a pleasant pen to write with. So far, I don't think the grip section has bothered me. Some people mention that. It's interesting. I would say that if I was going to have a Lamy pen and you want an interesting writing experience, I don't think I've tried their extra fine, so I can't speak to that, but this is the most user-friendly nib out there that gives some variation. When you get to the 1.1 millimeter stub, it's a nice grind, but unless you write very large, it's not an everyday writer. And this certainly, yeah, this certainly could be an everyday writer. Yeah. So there is the write-up on this, and that is a good look at this Kanji cursive nib. So thanks for joining and hanging out. If you have this nib, let me know what your thoughts are on it. This is kind of a first impressions for me, given that this is the first time I've gotten this nib in my hands to write with. Sometimes with more writing experience, impressions and opinions change, but at least for this first writing experience with it, that's kind of what I find and what I think about it. And I'm really excited about these two inks also. I can definitely see using these on the regular. So yeah, thank you so much for joining, and if you have some input on this nib, leave it in the comments below. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts and your experience on them. I'll see you on the next one. It's all up to you now.